proclaim me this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Till it cause thy mighty ones to come down. Oh Yahweh, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow.
Good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Continuing in 2 Corinthians, we're in chapter 9. And Paul had been saying, basically now he's sort of warning them. And he's warning them because he had said so many good things about them. And he didn't want to be embarrassed. And he didn't want them to be embarrassed either. And I think there's a little bit of a playful chiding here. You know, I did confidently boast of you quite a bit to everyone. So don't embarrass me. You know, because, and it's mostly because, why was he boasting of them? Well, to encourage others. Just as now he's been using the Macedonians and boasting of them to the Corinthians to provoke them to do good things. And sometimes, you know, sometimes that's going to help people, encourage them to do good things. Especially, you know, it's one thing when someone, you know, it's something you gotta be careful about. You know, it's not something I would recommend in principle, just generally, because if you, you know, like say you got two kids and you say, "Oh, your brother always does so great in math," you know, it can be a difference of ability. Now, you know, if now you have someone who's not good at math, but they're very diligent to do their homework, now you can say to the brother, now say, "Hey, you know, Johnny, you're really talented in mathematics, but your brother Mark is not. He struggles, but he still gets his homework done. So you also ought to get your homework done, since it's so much easier for you." And that, you know, that'd be appropriate. It wouldn't be appropriate when it's like, you know, well, Mark, you know, I know you suck at math, but your brother Johnny's so good. Why aren't you as good as he is? I wouldn't say things like that. It's detrimental to your relationship with your children, and also it's detrimental to their own. I usually talk about things like self-esteem, but having too much self-esteem is tiresome and unhealthy. But having none is also it's not good. People should be, you know, children ought to be loved, and people they shouldn't be made ashamed of their limitations. Yeah, I mean, meaning if someone's poor, they shouldn't be like, "Well, these rich people gave a lot more than you." Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be made ashamed of that. Now, but then if you have an excess and you have like say, "Well, this poor person gives more than you." I know for a fact, you know, this guy's a mechanic, and you're a very successful lawyer. He gives more than you do, you know. Whatever. I mean, not that I look into everyone's giving, but I'm just saying it's like if you're looking for times to provoke people, you know. And when it comes to some things are more equal across the board. It's like, you know, they have a zeal for the Lord. It's good to provoke people with their zeal. You know, I try to provoke people with my own zeal by being zealous for the things of God and being diligent, and by trying to set an example. I hope to, in some way, in some measure, encourage people to do the same thing, because I will tell you, a lot of those things never came easy to me. And so, if you struggle in them, know for certain that I did as well, and do as well. But I can assure you that, if the longer you engage in the struggle, it's not always has to do with your age. Because I fairly early in my adult life, I turned myself over to the Lord, and to what grand effect is under debate. You know, how but that was what I wished to do, at least. And I've tried to find some way to do it. I didn't have much of a guide. I'll say that. But so I've been engaged in it for a long time. And if you're engaged, a lot of people, when they're young, they don't. You're very zealous for things to begin to change and to have. I was telling my wife the other day something we kind of laugh about now. No, we don't exactly laugh. We don't know. We never laugh about it, to tell you the truth. But we wonder at it a little bit. But it's like, when I first got married, it's not a joke or nothing. But it's like I thought, I didn't think I'd be here now, right? I didn't think that I'd be in the year 2019. Because I felt like the end was near, It wasn't until, and it was the early 2000s, the Earlyaughts, as they call them, the double O's, 0001, 02, 03, 04, 05, like that. That was when I started developing my idea. Well, it was around the year 2000, actually, because I remember everyone getting up in arms about 2000. I thought, I don't think 2000 is it. There were two reasons. One, 2000 is, I never thought was it, because it's an arbitrary number. It actually is only approximately the time Jesus was born. Everyone always is like, oh, he's born in 4 BC or 2 BC or 6 BC or whatever. So it's obvious they don't really know. And then, but they don't. I've never heard anyone say he was born in 1, man. That was the year he was born. I've never seen anyone say like that was the year he was born, which is funny because that's Anno Domini. But I guess he had to be 4 years before he becomes our Lord. I don't know. So I always thought it was like interesting. We arbitrarily say, 2000 from when he was born. Why not 2000 from the year he left? And I started thinking in terms of like the 2020s and all that. But now I've sort of let go of that and realized it's like it doesn't matter, because if I live into the 2070s, which would make me, in 2070 I'll be 97 if I'm still alive. Or that'll be the year I turn 97. Even if I go that far, I still have to live life as though I was getting ready for the end of the world, because somewhere in there I'm going to have the end of my world. Maybe I'll see 2073. That would be interesting, because that's the year I'll turn 100. That would be interesting, to have a 3-digit age. But anyway, and so what I'd like to, because there's a lot of things I want to do. I'd like to maintain my intellect, and there are things I could accomplish, but I would much rather see God's kingdom come, of course. Whatever. I'm off on a tangent. Okay, but let's go back to verse 3. Yeah, I have, whatever. I had some reason to say a lot of that stuff, but I'm not going to try to dig it out. Yet have I sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf, that as I said, you may be ready. What I remember, the main thing I was trying to say is that when you're young, you're very anxious for things to happen, as I was when I was young, to see the end of the world, or if you're pursuing better things like righteousness and godliness, because you can't. The world will end in God's time. The age is going to come to an end. The kingdom of God will come. God has that in His own timing, and all the people out there freaking out trying to. I remember I did that thing remember there was that false sign I did a video on my other channel of, it was like October or something, 2016. And I remember I was talking to this woman who's big on that thing. And if it's not 20, it's going to be 2017. And I was like, no, you know what? It's not going to be either, probably. I didn't even say probably. I said definitely. Okay. I was just so annoyed with her. I just said, it's not going to be 2016. It's definitely not 2016. It's too late. I mean, it could start, but Jesus ain't going to come. just out of the thing. And none of the signs they were saying were true. And if the thing was a false sign, I'm like, you don't even have the signs of the end times included. They're always adding numbers up and taking the years of the Israelites' sojourn here or there or that, and then adding it to some arbitrary starting point and coming up with a new end of the age. And you know what? They've been wrong every time. Now, someday they're going to be right, because they're predicting it. Every year that we live, someone has been predicting the world will end on that year. Somewhere, someone's been predicting it. And it's a total waste of time for you to pursue that. It's a total waste of time to one, because it's like, what do people do? If you knew that the tribulation was going to start next year, what would you do? Ask yourself, what are you going to do to prepare yourself? Well, you should already be doing that, because you don't know when it's going to start. If the tribulation period was going to start next week, or next year, it's like, you should already, like, how would you react if you knew for certain it was going to begin? Just that it was going to begin. Because here's the thing, I don't even though it's going to begin, I don't even really know what it's going to bring. I don't know where the meteor is going to strike to see. Like, which part of the earth is going to be worst affected? Where's it going to be the worst? Should I go buy food? But I say do everything. You have to plan ahead. It's like, I think there are a lot of things that could be done. One of the things I realized is I wanted to be able to walk 100 miles. Or whatever. It's like things that, like, you think about, like, if God had to send me someplace and I had no other way to get there than on foot, could I make it? That's and you think about it. So it's important to me. One of the things is to, but not, physically fit, it profits a little bit, but spiritually fit is most important of all. You know what I mean? It's like to have your relationship right with God, because that is what's going to carry you through whatever. You know what I mean? It's like there are things you could do beyond that, but it's like that is priority one. And that's what you should be engaging all the time anyways. And that's what I want to encourage people to do. And when you're young, you expect to have quick results for everything. The world's just going to end tomorrow, but it's like, it's not. Even if it starts to end soon, it's going to be a while before it's actually done. And there'll be so much to do, your head will spin. Okay, go back to the text. Yet I have sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf, that, as I said, you may be ready. What he's saying is, like, I've sent the brethren, and I think he means there's a brethren he mentioned. I don't know if it's all of them, if Titus, their brother, and one they trust. It has to do with, because they want to give, and there's a collection for saints that are in trouble, not for Paul's ministry. At this point, this is early in Paul's ministry, so he's totally supporting himself still. This is for saints that are in trouble in places. Like I said, like, if they started shutting you out of society, like you couldn't work, you couldn't bank, you couldn't do nothing, and you have no way of supporting yourself, that kind of thing. They're under persecution. Saints that are being persecuted, they took up a collection for them, and that's what it's all about. So it's not like Paul wants to take up a collection for his new wardrobe and his private jet, like a lot of preachers do. The TV variety, anyways. Yet I have sent the brethren, lest our boasting should be vain in this behalf, that, as I said, you may be ready. Be ready. They're coming. Lest haply, if they of Macedonia come with me, and find you unprepared, we, that we say not ye, should be ashamed in this same confident boasting. It's interesting. I think this is the same figure of speech we have, that we say not ye. That's a weird. Doesn't that sound weird? We that we say not ye should be ashamed in the same confidence boasting. But it's like when I say, not to say you. So he's saying, and find you unprepared, lest haply they of Macedonia come with me, and we should be ashamed in the same confident boasting. If I just skip the little aside here and the parentheses, if I skip that, he's saying, I want you to be ready, lest when they come with me, we should be ashamed of our boasting. We should be embarrassed that we boasted because, you didn't live up to the promise. I want you to be ready. I told them good things about you. So be ready when they come, because we, and not to say you, meaning what's that figure of speech when I say, not to say you, say, we, not to say you, should be ashamed. It means I don't even have to say you. Obviously, you. That's what essentially means if I say not to say this. I believe, it's like, this trip's going to take a lot of time. Like, let's say I'm taking a trip somewhere. This trip's going to take a long time. Not to say the money it'll cost. You know what I'm saying? And meaning, I'm saying there's a cost in time, and then I'm not even mentioning the fact, because it's so obvious that the money is a big factor. Okay, so he's saying, hey, we might be ashamed of you. Not even to mention you might be ashamed. Not to say is a figure of speech where you say you're not saying something as you say it. And it's a funny thing humans do, and it goes back to ancient times, obviously, because Paul uses it here. We, not to say you, might be ashamed. I just find that interesting. But in the King James language, it sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? It's not in a form we're familiar with. It's the same thing, I believe. Therefore, I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren that they would go before unto you. This is why I sent the brethren. I'm sending the brethren ahead of time, probably with this letter, to exhort you. I'm sorry. I'm just assuming that. No. I exhorted the brethren that they should go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof ye had noticed before. Have you been told you ahead of time they would go there and get it ready, that the same night might be ready as a matter of bounty and not as of covetousness? Because Paul is very concerned about appearance. They want to do this. He boasted of their liberal, it was just like there's saints that have need, and Paul knows about this, and and then the Macedonians give, and the Corinthians are forward to give, and then it's like coming time to do that, and so he's saying, hey, get it all ready. I'm sending brethren ahead of time, because I don't want when I go there to make it look like I'm like, okay, where's the money? Be ready when I come, because it's not good appearance with when the day I walk into town. It's like, that's what I'm talking about. I don't want to get there and have to talk about this. He just wants to help the brethren, the saints that are persecuted. That's his only purpose. He wants to have it. He wants them to know ahead of time he's coming and be ready with it. So it could be something they give out of their bounty. Is like, here we have it, because that's different when someone arrives and you give them a big old, gift basket, so to speak. It's like, oh, out of bounty. But then they come and they say, okay, can we get something together for me? And it's not for Paul, but even so, he doesn't like the idea of coming there and gathering up the money. In fact, I'm not sure. I think this is where he says, that there be no gatherings when I come. Paul didn't like when he would arrive and then they would start like taking up offerings and stuff. I've never been comfortable with the whole offering thing. I went to a church and I performed and they took up an offering and, specifically in it. It is, fortunately, it's not something, it's something so common. And I was thankful to have it, because at the time I was struggling. At the time I was whatever. I was pleased to receive it. Never was an offering I wasn't pleased to receive. So, like I said, it always imbues me with a sense of responsibility, because it's not like they're saying. Nobody ever said to me like, "Oh, you're poor, so I give." No, They always say, like, for the ministry, for the work you do, for that. And so that's like, a lot of people don't even know whether or not there's any need, because I make a point of not addressing that very often, really. I mean, it's like, I was just think the Lord has always taken care of me, so that that's that. But, the idea of asking people and gathering and stuff like that, Paul found it very distasteful. I understand. But I don't have the same, like when I go to church, I'm just some guy playing his guitar or something, or come to talk or something. It's very minor figure. And, and the amounts they take up are so small. And it's only been like, I think I've only been in 3 churches where they took up offerings for me. I mean, just so you understand, this is not from a wide breadth of experience of the offerings taken up. 3. So that's it. But I understand the discomfort they would feel if, like, you came and then you had to, like, if I had to do it. Thankfully, in every instance, a pastor or some other figure was encouraging other people and taking up the offering. No one ever, but Paul is like the leader of the faith and of all them. And so they're taking all their cues from him. When he comes in, an apostle has arrived, and he's authoritative to them. He teaches them everything. And so, like, there's a possibility of him coming and them just sort of waiting for him to tell them when to take up the offering. That's how the thing goes when you have someone who's authoritative in the things of God. A lot of times people really defer to them. And Paul, I'm sure, was deferred to quite a bit. And so, he could show up potentially and nothing has been done because they're waiting for him lest they do it wrong or something. I mean, you never know. And so maybe he's encountered this where he came and then the part of the purpose of coming was to receive money for persecuted saints in some other place and whatever. And he had to go and do it, even though it was something maybe they themselves had said, we'd really like to help out the brethren in that region where there's, Jerusalem was a hot spot, obviously. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he hath purposed in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly, or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. It's like by constraint, like you have to, I've got to do it. I've got to do it, so I'll do it. Grudgingly is, I don't want to do it. Like grudgingly is like, I really don't want to give up what I have. And of necessity is like, I have to give up what I have. But God loves a cheerful giver. Who doesn't? No one likes to take from someone who's like, all right. It's like, or someone who's like, I guess that's what's required of me. Both feel cold and sort of like, it's like, I don't want your money that bad. That's not it. It's like, I don't want to look at you grudgingly handing over something you don't really want to give, or feel that you're only doing it because you feel like it's an obligation, some sort of legalistic thing that you must do to please God. Verse 6 is somewhat axiomatic. And it's relative, too. Meaning, if you've got seed to sow, and I hate using the analogy of seed with money, but here's probably part of where it comes from, right? Because they always say, sow a little seed into the ministry, a little faith seed, or what do they call it? A little seed money, whatever. Yeah, I think of that guy with the beard and the jet and I forget his name. But there's all those guys with talking about send your money in and so they can talk about Jesus, and I don't know. It's like they're very high on the name of Jesus, very much talking about Jesus, but what profit do we have in them? I mean, the funny thing is they'll say some good things. Who doesn't? You can listen to, but I mean, the thing is, for the amount of goodness you get out of that, you could probably watch someone like Tony Robbins, the big guy with the big jaw, who was like I'm the positivity preacher or whatever. A lot of people, he has success in life, I think is what it was called. Some program. I remember back in the 90s on late night TV seeing his little infomercials for his, selling his, power and success systems. I never went after it, because I was always sort of thinking there was something, like it's worldly, essentially. And I'm not going to slam it because, like I said, the same kinds of wisdom can be present in worldly ideas. But whatever. But I don't like I don't like just thinking this in terms of money, because I'm going to presume everyone out there doesn't have really like an abundance of money to do with whatever. And in that regard, I don't know what you should do with it. I mean, it's like there are a lot of ways to be wise with your money and all that. But again, when it comes to sowing sparingly, reaping sparingly, it's like if you want to prosper in the things of God, which is like, I'm assuming more, you're not really, because Paul isn't saying, let me just make it very clearly. When he's saying this, he's not saying that you should sow your money to get more money. You know what I mean? Like, never, ever, ever, ever do that. Don't think that by giving money to a ministry, you're going to get more money and be rich. It's like, if you're seeking blessing from God, maybe money is something you need. Well, it's like, as far as like, I would ask these questions first. Do you have shelter? Can you afford it? Are you able to pay your bills? Do you have food and clothing? Are you able to pay for those? Ultimately, we all want to pay for those ourselves. We don't want to have to use government assistance, right? All those things, so those, to get to a level of self-support, I would consider that something to be prayerful about, because we all want to work with our own hands and be supportive of ourselves, and that makes you feel the best inside. You feel good that you are doing your part and you're not relying on other people, or not, relying on the charity of others when you could, there's a lot of times people are underemployed, or their family situation is difficult, and I don't want to shame anyone for needing that. I'm just saying, when you're in those situations, I could see you're thinking like, hey, Lord, I want to get out of this. I want to earn more money. I want to find a way to be more financially independent. Fine. But if you have enough of all those things, right? If you have food and raiment, if you have the necessities of life, in our modern society, like if I live in a rural area, you must have a car. This is not the city. I can't jump on a bus or on the subway. No choice. It's like, I mean, I could get on a bicycle, but grocery shopping for 10 people would be a murder. I'd need a cart and a horse, and that's, I think, in some ways more expensive than a car. I can get a car for cheaper than, I'm pretty sure, what it would cost to get a cart and a horse. So, when we're talking about sowing and reaping, don't think in financial terms, please, as far as that, if I sow money, I'm going to get more money. When he's saying it, when he talks about the bounty they're reaping, he means blessings, which are not just financial. And if you think about it in terms of, like if you think about that concept of like, okay, give money, and the more you give, the more you'll get back. As far as like God will keep blessing you until you just, but that's like, if you follow that to its logical conclusion, eventually you should have infinite money. Because you give If you give God money, then he blesses you back with even more. And if you give out of that abundance even more, he gives you even more. And it's just a cycle of just explosive wealth. And that's how they sell it. But that's not what happens to people who give to those ministries. They'll read your testimonials as like, I gave, and then the next week I got a check in the mail. I was saying it's funny they talk about these mysterious checks in the mail. And I wonder how many of those checks are disability checks, or you know what I mean? It's like my disability got approved or whatever. And hey, if you're disabled, there's no shame in that, though a lot of people do feel ashamed when they have to take that. Everyone would, and while you have the time, if you, like maybe there's something, I know a lot of disabled people who learn skills and stuff. But anyways, if I sow my money, if I could buy righteousness, I would trade that if I had money to sow. You know what I mean? I would trade, money for righteousness. I would trade money for knowledge, the knowledge of God. If I could buy it. A man tried to buy it. He tried to buy the Holy Ghost. Actually, what he did is tried to buy the ability, and it was Simon the Sorcerer. Was that the one? He wanted to buy. He wanted to give the apostles money, so that give me this power, so that I could lay my hands on people and they receive the Holy Ghost. And he was rebuked. Your money perish with you. But in a sense, like I don't like the reason he wanted it because he wanted the power for himself. Yeah, I mean the way he went about it was corrupt. But if someone were to say like, I'll give all my money so that I could receive the Holy Spirit, or so that I could, receive the righteousness of God, like indeed, and have the knowledge of God. If I could know these things, if I could just give my money and then I could have that, I'd make that trade. That's not such a bad thing. But when we give, there are other blessings. We can receive peace in response. We can receive the joy of knowing we've done right by someone who is suffering. There are a lot of ways in which it can be reciprocal, but it's not necessarily in the same currency. You know what I'm saying? Like you can give in the currency of money and receive back sevenfold, not in money, but in some other currency, and something that maybe is a little more valuable, a little more permanent. Like Jesus said, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. What are the treasures in heaven going to be? Silver and gold? It's like, no. And like I read in Revelation, the street of the city was pure gold as it were transparent glass. I mean, the heavenly city is spoken of as being paved with gold, having gemstones for the foundations of the city. In one sense, it says, wow, what a rich city. But in the other sense, it means these things are common. You know what I'm saying? Like, this city is made out of gold. When you have a city made out of gold, in that city, gold is worthless, virtually. You know what I mean? Otherwise, people would be hacking the streets apart for the gold. It's not like you walk on, you're like, God, it's like, maybe tonight I'll come out with a chisel and get some money. That only is in the fantasy of, back in the day, when they were exploring America, the thought that they'd find a place like that and they take the gold back where it was valuable, because the truth is, in the city of gold, gold is worthless. Gemstone, in the city made of gems are worthless. So we want to, lay up for ourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where thieves do not break through nor steal. And these treasures are not the earthly treasures of wealth and of possessions, but are spiritual things. And so, whatever you happen to be, so the axiomatic idea is this, though. It's like, if you've got a lot of spare time, don't be sparing, don't sow sparingly of your spare time to the Lord. Like, give yourself to the Lord as much as possible, because that you will be blessed by that measure. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I can devote 15 minutes a week to the Lord, to to learning, and to. I'm sure I can get at least 15 minutes in. But the people who watch this every morning, or catch it later in the afternoon after it's been recorded, that's a significant commitment. I remember when I first started studying with Arnold Murray, I was watching 4 hours of his broadcast every day. But I was, I just dropped out of college and I had a lot of free time. I was I was unmarried. I had no children. I just worked, 40 hours a week, and that left me with a lot of hours to do other things. Because it was a pretty meaningless job. So I spent a lot of time in the Word. And I tell you what, it was definitely, the more I gave of myself to that, I was definitely blessed and rapidly, I had a lot of misunderstandings, but I knew a lot about the Bible now. Whereas before I was very ignorant about the Bible. I didn't know what, I remember opening up the Bible to the book of Isaiah, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I didn't know what he was talking about. The ox knows his master's crib. The ox knows his owner, the ass his master's crib, but Israel does not know, my people does not consider. I was like, what is that talking about? I could not fathom this analogy about the ox and the ass. And it's very simple. The animal understands where it lives and all that, and my people don't appreciate me. But even so, even if I had gotten that far, I would have been like, what? I don't get it. Because I didn't know about the kingdom of Israel. I didn't know about the carrying away into captivity. I didn't know about what Isaiah was, the times he lived in and what he was prophesying of. There was no context given to me. It's just a book. So I prospered in learning the basics about the Bible. I prospered in understanding the context in which it was written. And I gained a lot of just general knowledge about the Bible. And and it was not sparing, because I wasn't sparing in my devotion to it. And so, if you in anything, if you want to be prosper if you want to prosper in anything, it's this very simple analogy. If you have some seed and you go out in your garden and you plant just a few, guess what? You're just going to get a few plants. But if you just sow seed everywhere, you're going to probably have a lot of plants grow up, aren't you? And so if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. If you sow bountifully, you reap bountifully. It's axiomatic and true. And it goes in all kinds of things in life. Give yourself whole hog to your education, or give yourself whole hog to your business, your whatever. You're going to, of the same, reap the reward. And the more you do so, but the more you're tepid about it, the more you back off, the more reluctant you are to fully commit yourself to any given endeavor, the less you're going to see prosperity in that. It's the same with things of God. It's like, if you want to prosper in righteousness, you got to hunt that down with a lot of diligence. You got to sow towards righteousness. And what that a lot of times that means is, I don't know. I was going to say some things in terms of righteousness. Righteousness is a tough one. First of all, you got to know what's right. You got to know what's right first. Otherwise, you're going to be ignorantly doing things wrong, and you won't even know, and you won't be righteous. You'll just be ignorant. It'd be, on some level, maybe you could consider yourself innocent. But some things done in ignorance, it's not of ignorance. So, I didn't know it was bad. It was just thoughtlessness. I didn't think about how bad it was what I was doing. I didn't consider how it hurt others. And so, it starts with being mindful in a lot of things of where am I? What am I in? What am I looking for? How do I obtain the goals I'm looking for? In anything, you got to give yourself to it with some zeal. Otherwise, you're not going to get much out of it. If you commit to the Lord in a small way, you will reap a very small reward. Every man according as he purposed to, whatever in your heart you purpose to give. What's in your heart to do, do. Give what's in your heart to do. Yeah, yes, you will. If you do it sparingly, you will reap sparingly. But, if that's all you got in your heart to do, well, then do that. But whatever you do, don't do it grudgingly or thinking like, well, this is what I got to do. Sometimes I confess, sometimes I have a bit of a necessity attitude. Like it's what's needful. I need to do this. It's not quite as bad as grudging, right? I confess to not being the most cheerful person. Especially when it comes to the hard things. When I first started studying the Word, I studied the Word cheerfully. I did. And I get up here and I teach the Bible. I cheerfully teach it. I like doing this. I enjoy it. There's no of necessity. But there are a lot of things in my life that I like are of necessity. I do it and I don't, I feel like I have to work out. I have to be fit. It borders on grudging. It does. It does. I wish I could just purpose in my heart to do some things and just do them and just be cheerful about it. But it's not always so easy. And that's borderline not even like something to be considered in this sort of thing, in this context of the Lord, right? So maybe I'm being hard on myself, but I do think there is a part of it that I do think is important because it's like I think that this body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. I've got to take care of it. I've got to be, I have to use this thing for my entire life to serve the Lord. So I need it to be in good condition. Paul the Apostle says, bodily exercise profits a little. But you gotta remember, the Apostle Paul walked from city to city constantly, worked with his own hands all the time, making tents. The guy was probably in great shape. He walked from city to city. He didn't have a litter and guys bearing him around. And he didn't live a sedentary lifestyle. I have a home. I work at this desk for multiple hours in the day. And if I don't get up and move around, I will grow to be 300 pounds before you can say Jack Robinson or whatever. Jack Be Nimble. I don't know. It won't take too long. In 5-6 years, it's just quickly balloon up. So it's not gonna be diligent about. Because like I said, it's like if I'm called upon, I don't want to be serving God and being ashamed of the body in which I do my service. And it's important to me. So I do think there's something into that. In that regard. Oh, sorry, something got just this really itchy nose. It's like slowly trying to make me sneeze. But so in that case, it's like I do want to be cheerful in those things, but it's not so easy. And God would prefer it. When the Lord Jesus laid down his life, he didn't do it cheerfully. Right? He went to Gethsemane and he wept. Some things are harder, right? Giving your money should be the least thing. You know what I mean? And in this context of giving of money, yeah, I think the Lord probably it's one thing if you're saying like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to do something incredibly difficult. I'm going to go take up my cross and be crucified. It's understandable why you may not be too cheerful about that, where there might be a great heaviness about that moment, because you're entering into something you can say all you like about for the glory of God, but it's like, man, the cross is going to be heavy, and every step is going to be hard, and it's like you have to go all the way to the end and make it, and it's like it is not a fun day, to work through those things. Sometimes we have things to do that are painful, difficult, hard, and it is not easy. But giving your money is, quite frankly. And if we can't be cheerful in that, how do we think, if we can't cheerfully give our money, how do we expect we're going to lay our lives down if called upon? How are we going to suffer for the name of Christ? If I can't even cheerfully give a few of my dollars up, how can I give my life up? How am I going to commit all my time? I'm so obsessed about the dollars and the cents and all that like I can't There's no way I'm going to be able to do the other. So that's an important point. You know, it's like it is indicative. It's one of the least things you can do. One of the least things we can do in the faith is if we have more money than we need to support ourselves. You know what I mean? Because you don't have, the idea is not to put anyone in to, to put someone in want so that someone else can have an abundance. That is not what the point of giving is. Even that's what a lot of ministers on the television, like on Trinity Network, that network is notorious in my mind. Trinity, with the preachers who preach the money thing, they all ought to be. I mean, let's not say what they ought to be. They all ought to have their mouths stopped. I could say that. Not that I want anyone to go do it, but I'm just saying it's like God, except God. I want the Lord to judge it. That I can pray. You can always say, God, judge it, man. The Lord judge between me and you. There's a lot of that. Call God into judgment. It's dangerous, but sometimes it ought to be done. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound in every good work. To be sufficient in everything. I got enough to eat. I've got enough to. This is what I said. If I got clothes, I got eating. If I need a house, I got a house. I got some place to dwell, to do my work. To platform, whatever. To raise a family. Something when you need a place to raise your family, or a vehicle, whatever these days is necessary. This is not. In today's world, it's not. Obtaining a vehicle is not horrifically difficult if you need one. Well, sometimes it can be, right? Sometimes that's what people need is I need a car. And God is able to make yeah. So he's able to be gracious towards us. Oh, sorry. Make us abound in all grace. It means all kinds of ways God could be gracious towards us in all manner of giving, whether it be financial, yes. So that if we have enough, we can do good with what we have. If I've got sufficient time to earn money, to take care of my family, to do this, that, and the other, then I have time to serve God in the ministry. If I have time to do this, I have time to, if I have extra, I can do that. If I have extra money, I can spend it this way. If I'm abounding in knowledge, I can share that. I can do good with what God has given me and blessed me in. That's the thing. So if I have enough of what I need for myself, now I can abound towards others. A teacher, as a manifest, a teacher must be taught first before he can teach others. And you must have enough to support yourself first before you can support others. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad. He hath given to the poor. His righteousness remaineth forever. All right. Oh, all right, let's see. Where are my reading glasses? I brought them here. Okay, because I realized the other day when I was able to see clearly, it's because I put in two contacts. And originally I thought I'll wear two contacts, or one contact, so I can close one eye and read the Bible here if I need to. And then I'd have the other eye to see the screen. But all that means is I have one blurry eye and it's hard to read anything on the screen. Anything smaller than that text there. So I want to know what this sounds to me either like a proverb or a psalm, but we will find out. Okay. The whole book of 2 Corinthians is having trouble. All right. Verse 9. Scorpio. Psalm 112, verse 9. That's where it's quoted from. Oh, I only need reading glasses when I get my contacts in. It's like it's changing the hardware and accessories. That is ridiculous. Psalm 112, verse 9. Do I want to read it? Let's take a peek. Is there anything interesting there beyond? I doubt it, because it's like, again, these are sort of axiomatic things he's saying that have to do with giving, but it's not just giving of money. It's when you give yourself in anything. Or what is he talking? The Lord, blessed is the man that feareth the Lord, that delighteth greatly in his commandment. Here, I'll just share. Don't forget this part, Paul. Yeah, there we go. Praise ye the Lord. Blessed is the man that feareth the Lord, that delighteth greatly in his commandment. His seed shall be mighty upon the earth. The generation of the upright shall be blessed. Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endureth forever. Unto the upright there ariseth light in the darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteous. A good man showeth favor and lendeth. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting the Lord. His heart is established. He shall not be afraid until he see his desire upon his enemies. He hath dispersed. He hath given to the poor. His righteousness endureth forever. His born shall be exalted with honor. That means his offspring. The wicked shall see it and be grieved. He shall gnash with his teeth and melt away. The desire of the wicked shall perish. And so the point of that is that a man who is blessed and who has wealth and is righteous of God gives. And that's what he's quoting. Psalm 112. If you've got sufficiency, then you can abound in good works towards others. And it's good, and he conducts his affairs in such a way to be sufficient. I want to prosper. Like I said, I have prospered. I prospered in children and in other things. But now at a certain point in my life, I feel like I need to prosper in other things also. Because I want my children to go off and be successful in their own right, whatever. And that may be, to be a success, to successfully raise a family, you got to earn a certain amount of money. You can't just have a lot of children with no money. That's not going to work out too good. I know, because I remember when I lost my business years ago, I'd always heard of this welfare thing, right? And I thought, well, maybe I can get welfare. So I checked it out. And guess what? No, you can't. If you have a man in your house, you will not get any help. Because we live in a unenlightened, traditional society that believes in the male role model. And so if you're a single girl with children, you can get all the money you want, or you can get a certain amount, obviously. Even they have work requirements and stuff they start sticking on people. But it's like there is money, cash payments and housing, but no man. That's how they destroyed the black family, by the way. Because they offered all these benefits, and they said, yeah, you just got to get rid of the guy. Or lie anyways, right, and tell him there's no man in the house. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Oh, wait a second. Now back. He hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. That's a refrain throughout that psalm, by the way. His righteousness remaineth forever. And I think it means that his good deeds, they go on. The good things he's done. That answers to what I was saying about laying up for yourselves treasures in heaven. What we do with what we have in the world matters in that it bounds to our account with God, so to speak, to our reward in the heavens. That as we've received Christ, we want to walk worthy of that calling and be abundant in it and live up to the various things. It's like this. It's not just believe in Jesus. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of other things God would like to see in us. He would like to see a certain generosity. He would like to see righteousness, godliness, soberness. He wants to see temperance in all things. There are a lot of things that we want to manifest as believers, beyond just manifesting, oh, I believe. What do you believe? Do you believe that, having sufficiency in all things, you ought to abound in every good work? Well, that's what the apostles of Jesus taught. So if you believe in Jesus, you got to believe in all those things they taught. And you got to put it in context, and comparing truth with truth, scripture with scripture. It's not always so. Not every passage is an axiom that you apply to everything. Like I said about just because Paul was provoking one group by showing the others an example doesn't mean that using comparisons between people is always such a good idea. There's ways in which it can be very negative. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Being, why is that also in the parentheses? Again, he's sort of like it says, there is, it's an analogy. He that sowed sparingly reaps sparingly. And because the fruits here are not the fruits of your labor, but the fruits of your righteousness. That in living righteously, we bear a certain fruit. And there are a lot of fruits of being righteous. The generosity, kindness, temperance, sobriety, godliness, charity, love towards charity, meaning love towards others, benevolence, a willingness to, I said generosity, generosity of your time, your talents, your money, your whatever it happens to be, you have abundance of. We have sometimes we don't have abundance in something, and we can't give that, but we give of the abundance we do have. And now he, the minister of seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food. Speaking of the Lord, I believe, I'm certain he is the one who he ministers not only the seed, but the bread, meaning the produce of the seed. And he multiplies that which is sown and increases the fruit. Being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. I don't think it's awkward, but in English at least, but it's very straightforward. That if we are enriched in all these things to being bountiful, and all those things, if we have those things, then, well, Paul is saying if you have them, then I am abounding, or it causes me to give thanks to God. You're seeing, and when I see progress in people, because Paul, of his bounty, of his zeal for the Lord to preach the gospel and to help people enter in and to teach, through his zeal for those things, he caused people to enter into the faith and to abound in those things. And so seeing them manifest the fruits of that commitment that he made, causes him to be thankful. and seeing that fruit manifest in them. When you see, so I feel the same way. It's like when I see the fruit of the things I teach manifest in good things in other people, it causes me to give thanks to God, because it's like that everything I do is not in vain. Like I said, ultimately I would not consider in vain doing it, because it is also beneficial to me just to sit and to meditate. For the administration of this service not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings unto God. Whilst the experiment of this Whilst by the experiment of this ministration they glorify God for your professed subjection to the gospel of Christ, and for your liberal distribution to them and unto all men. And we're like 3 seconds from an hour. Boy, that's a weird... how much more for this chapter? Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, there's no way I'm not going to finish this chapter. Because it's actually pretty... And by their power for you, which long after you for the exceeding grace of God in you, thanks be to God for this unspeakable gift. So, Paul occupies a long section here. This is for the saints. Paul is thankful for the giving. He doesn't like to have gatherings when he comes. Wants them to be ready. Wants them to understand how much he boasted about them. So I boasted a lot about you. So I don't want you to be embarrassed, and I don't want to be embarrassed, and not to even mention you. You might be embarrassed. It's abundant. So what he's saying is, you're giving, you're manifesting this fruit of righteousness, and giving these things. Like the Psalm 112 said about the righteous man giving things. It's not only that it supplies the want of the saints, but it's also abundant in the sense it causes a lot of people to give thanks. What you're doing is not only supplying the want of the saints, of the lack, but it causes all kinds of people to be thankful. Not just the people who receive it, but meaning Paul himself. I'm thankful for you, because seeing your faith builds me up. And I feel the same way when I see people prospering in the things of God. It makes my heart rejoice, especially if I had something to do with it. All right, now I have to look up a couple words in verse 13, but we're just about done here, and we can begin clean on chapter 10 on Monday, which is a great place to start. This experiment, I'm like, that sounds weird, right? That's just not working for me there. What? Corinthians? Oh, no wonder this is chapter 8. I'm like looking at it on the Bible Hub. I just want to look up the one word. Profess subjection of the gospel of Christ. Okay. Experiment. Dokime. All right, that's... okay, it makes... Dokime. Or dokimazo is like to test. To prove. And it's also to approve. Experiment sounds like tinkering. But what he means is the proving of something. The way experiment kind of can prove, I will prove by this experiment, okay, that's what it means. So it's better to say, while by the proof of this ministration, they glorify God for your professed subjection. Meaning, it's one thing to profess. It's great you profess your subjection to the gospel of Christ. That's great. Right? But the thing is, the doing of the things, the giving of ourselves, whether it be by money or, like I said, time, effort, sacrifice, all the things we can possibly give. it does prove our faith when we do it. Right? When we do those things, because it's more than just a profession. Your professed subjection to the gospel of Christ, great. But the proving of it really drives it home. That proof, by ministering in that way, it causes people to glorify God and then say, because of this professed, because it's the proof of the professed subjection to the gospel of Christ, and for your liberal distribution unto them, all these things cause rejoicing. And by their power for you, prayer for you, gosh, Paul, so much for reading clearly. And by their prayer for you, which long after you for the exceeding grace of God in you. So what he means by longing after them, it can be in many, like they long to emulate. You know what I mean? They long also to see them blessed. I don't know precisely what he means as far as when they long after them, but I mean, I think it like in the sense of the Corinthians, it's like such an example of the faith. And so what he's saying is that what you're doing does a lot of good, not just to those who receive it, but to those who hear of it. To anyone who has anything to do with it. Anyone who's touched by this, it blesses them. And so I give thanks, and others give thanks for this unspeakable gift. So, there we go. Finish chapter 9. Finish that whole section. We can move on from our favorite subject to less interesting things. I'm just kidding. And so, 10 is a chapter where we start to get into some interesting subjects. Not that the last wasn't interesting, okay? But it is difficult sometimes because it's like I said, I go over this line by line, and I don't think that's something Paul necessarily meant to be poured over with a fine-tooth comb. You know what I mean? It was about giving and stuff that he wasn't particularly comfortable with, but he wrote a lot about it. I think it's an indication of his discomfort in some ways. Because he talks very much about, hey, for the ministration of the saints, I don't want, when I come, I don't want there to be, be ready. Have it ready so it can be out of abundance, not out of covetousness. Don't make me look covetous. Like I'm coming there for the money. That's not why I'm coming. I want to see you. And you want to give? Okay, I'll take the thing. Have it ready. Great. I mean, I'm thankful. I'm very thankful. And he wanted to make sure he underscored that at the end. That's an important part, is that, after having said all that at the end, the thing he most wanted them to understand, the last thing he says, I am very thankful for this gift because it's a good thing. It's not that, and it's not even for him. You know what I mean? But he wants to understand that he's thankful anyways because it's more than just giving to people. It's more than about money. It's about seeing their professed faith manifest in a real way. And that's the thing, is like I have my faith professed. I want it to manifest in real things, real obedience to righteousness, real deeds of the things which are supposedly part of being a Christian, right? You don't want to just be like, I'm a Christian in name only, but not in deed only, not in some deeds. All right. Anyways, thanks for joining me today. We'll look forward to studying with you again on Monday. We'll pick it up with chapter 10.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Till it cause thy mighty ones to come down. O Yahweh, let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the